Willkommen, bienvenue. Welcome once again to another live stream. I'm joined as ever by the incredible David Chernick and myself, Gareth Wax of the Many Purple Hats. And today we are discussing something which I actually didn't see within the sales pantheon, but I think it's probably very important that we step on it, which is all about how do you cultivate introducers. Now, this is David's topic. What do you mean by an introducer, and what do you mean by cultivating them?
So an introducer is simply somebody who is not in your employment. They are completely independent of you, and they'll actively introduce you to qualified opportunities.
Okay. And
are they commission when you close the business?
All right. And the commission is fixed ahead of time, and so they almost can run it as a separate income stream by promoting perhaps yours and perhaps multiple other businesses, in return for which they'll get certain level of payment. So here's the question. Often people refer to those as leads, and half the time I've found that they're just people who know how to spell my first name. How do you define when it's a lead from an introducer, or it's just someone passing over a name of a potentially interested party?
So it's a good question, and it actually leads perfectly onto what we mean by cultivating, which is that, what will qualify somebody as a qualified opportunity. I shouldn't really have the word qualified twice in the same sentence.
A doubly qualified opportunity, qualified square.
Qualified opportunity will depend on who the introduction is for, but it is obviously worth having some qualifying criteria and a minimum level of data. Some are very sort of not that fussy about the qualification. Some just want the data. But really, you're talking here about a potential referral. And as we've talked about many times before, referrals are hotter than just leads that you buy off the shelf. Yeah, because they imply that the person who is introducing them knows who they are. Okay, so if I'm a potential client and a mate or a supplier of mine says, "Oh, would you take a call from such and such a company because they are offering savings on your, financial services?" And I say, "Okay, well, look on the back of your relationship with them. Yeah, I'll take that call." Yeah, and if I take that call, then I will have been introduced. Yeah.
So the introduction doesn't necessarily have to mean that they are wanting to close for business, or does it mean that they are?
Not necessarily, no. Not necessarily, but that's where the word cultivating comes in, because obviously there are, introductions and there are introductions, and there's a balance to be made between how well they are qualified and how much selling you actually want the introducer to do, because you don't really want the introducer doing the selling.
Right.
Almost always you don't want the introducer doing the selling. You want the introducer just to do the introduction, and hopefully they bare bones of a qualification, for example, in terms of the services that they already buy or are interested in. So if you are already buying a particular type of financial service and you agree to be introduced to another service provider, then really they're looking to provide you with a competitive quote. Something that you already have is the case in a lot of cases where introducers are used.
So for instance, I've been working with a client recently who were looking for introductions, but the trouble is a lot of the people, so they're in the property game, but a lot of people that get passed their way actually on closer view are competitors. But they identify as investors when in fact they are property speculators, which is exactly what the client is. So it's hard to sometimes differentiate.
It can certainly be hard, and quite often an introducer might have a fairly competitive offering and wants to add your own service to their suite of services. And, that's, again, fairly typical. You find IT support companies wanting to be able to sell mobile telecoms, wanting to be able to sell utilities and all sorts of other different things. And why? Because they're complementary to their services, and the client is, for those different sorts of services, often the same person. Yeah,
right.
So there you can see what's in it for the introducer. It gives them an opportunity to have a broader suite of services, which potentially can make their clients stickier. If I'm just buying IT support from you, that's one thing if I want to leave, but I'm getting my IT support from you. I've got my utilities via you. You've helped me save money on my property, maybe on my recruitment. You have a lot tied up in it. So you're talking there about a stronger relationship for the introducer. And of course, the introducer will be getting something out of it as well. And quite often, the commission that they're getting paid for that introduction, if it's in the case of other brokers, that commission is paid by that broker's client, effectively. Right. Yeah, or that broker's panel of suppliers will pay that commission. Yeah, so we're not sort of inventing money out of nothing. Somebody pays. The customer obviously always is the person that's paying, but quite often that cost of sale that is split in multiple different ways, including the salesperson who closes the deal, including the sales support that calculate all of the quotes, and the marketing element that also has all has a bite. They all have a bite out of the cost of sale budget. And all we're doing here is, instead of spending that bit of budget on marketing, which, as you know, if you're doing broadcast or volume marketing, the conversion ratios are very small. But from an introducer, they're not going to be as small, because everybody that they introduce, or a far higher proportion of the people that they introduce, if you're doing it right, are going to be potential customers compared to more broad marketing.
I mean, I've been attempting to use introducers for the last year. And my experience is, if they don't bring a reasonable volume of potential to you, it doesn't matter how great their introduction techniques are. You are talking ones, twos, and threes. You need a reasonable funnel worth, because they're not selling. They are introducing the idea of the concepts that you do without any detail to it whatsoever. And when it comes down to it, there may be many different reasons why it isn't suitable for that particular client.
Really, what we're looking for here are cultivated. This is why I use the word cultivating introducers, because an introducer will cultivate, or is supposed to be cultivating, relationships in order to make those introductions. And the expectation is usually that they're not having to cultivate new relationships. They are really looking at their existing relationships, people that they know through doing other bits and pieces. They're other supply of other services, friends, that kind of thing. But you can be a proactive introducer. If you have worked out how to introduce people effectively, and if you have the right support from the company that you are representing, introducing to, then it could be worth your while to dedicate some of your time to finding new introductions. If you might have a particular skill set, you might have a particular access to certain markets, and if you do, you can capitalize on those by making sure that the people that you know have access to all of the services that they need, that you can provide via your own network. So it's quite a handy way to do it. But of course, it can work well and it can work badly, and there are some people that do it very well and some people that don't. So what is the difference? And one of the big differences is how you look after your introducers. It's one thing to say, okay, well, you like me, I like you, you know pretty much what we do, so introduce away. That's one thing. Or I could take some time to educate my introducers about things like the product, or about how to buy it, or what the value of that introduction is to me. People don't want to be introducing their close relationships if it's going to damage those relationships. They're only going to want to introduce their friends and clients to people that are going to provide something valuable and not mess them around and, you know, be decent people to deal with. So, because that's going to enhance their reputation. Conversely, of course, if you're just going to introduce people willy-nilly, those people that you're introducing, they're going to be speaking to a whole pile of different cowboys. So there's no value in that for the introducer. In fact, there's the opposite. So we don't want to be damaging relationships. But as a company that is selling services, and I'm making use out of an introducer, then if the more I can do to support that introducer, the more likely they are to introduce good opportunities. And the support I can provide, yes, it's in terms of perhaps some knowledge about the services and the products, but it can also be service, you know, a way of looking after that introducer that costs and shows a really good impression to the people being introduced. Yeah, if I introduce, Gareth, to you somebody who needs all of their workforce having, you know, nice LinkedIn profiles, then, you know, that's going to, then I know that when that client of mine that wants those nice LinkedIn profiles for all their workers, I know that they're going to get a good service from you. Yeah, so that's going to enhance my reputation.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I think people should realize that there isn't always a direct linkage between one and the other. Often there is more of a linkage with the negative side than with the positive. So if you introduce someone who then does a terrible job, that can detract from your reputation. If you introduce someone that does an amazing job, sometimes it can have absolutely no effect on your reputation.
Maybe not. But the introducer should be able to benefit from that, and, you know, might be able to take a 25% share in the cost of sale, in the allocation of commissions. So it won't be as much commission as if they had completed the deal, of course.
Right.
But that's really an indicator as to how much work they should be putting in. They should be cultivating their own relationships in order to provide those introductions, and know how the systems work for making those introductions. You know, we want those introductions to be slick and seamless. You know, I want to be able to take your details, pick up the phone to the company that I'm introducing to and say, yo, I've got his name, his address, his telephone number, his mobile number. Ideally, a little bit more information about what you already have. He already has these products in place. Here's how much he's spending. He's been with XYZ provider for so many years. You know, he has an okay relationship with them. Anyway, go and knock yourselves out. Now, that's quite a good level of information, yeah, for the receiving party to get hold of.
Absolutely.
So they're able to phone you up and say, yo, Gareth, we've heard from our friend, our introducer, David Chernick. He's given me some information here about you. He's told us that you have these products from these suppliers and that perhaps you'd be interested in a competitive quote.
Right.
Can we have your letter of authority, or can we see your bills, or you know, if it's a renewable service, if it is one of these, you know, subscription type services or utilities or anything like that, you know, it can be handy if you're providing as the introducer things like their next contract review dates, their renewal dates, if it's insurance, that kind of thing. And then you're arming the person who you're hoping to close that deal that will deliver to you the commission, you're arming them with useful information.
I think it's critical that you provide anyone that's going to work on your behalf as an introducer, or anyone that's going to help provide leads, with as much information so they can at least at prima facie represent what you're trying to achieve in such a way that at least it sits true with the people reading it. Yeah. I think if you don't provide enough information up front,
you know, I don't need to know, and perhaps shouldn't really know, all of the ins and outs in order to be able to recount them to the person I want to introduce, because, you know, I don't want to be taking responsibility for selling their service. That's their job. Yeah? All I want to be able to do to optimize my time and optimize my relationships is to make that introduction. And, you know, the receiving party in that transaction. I don't want my introducers selling my stuff. I can sell my stuff.
No, absolutely. They've just got to show the shiny, sparkly thing, and then once they're up close, they can see what it actually entails. David,
That's right.
Give us a quick summary.
So the summary is that having introducers can be a very useful and really sort of valuable marketing tool for referral marketing. People don't do anything for nothing. If you're in a referral network, then the gain might be that you're all referring to each other, and what goes around comes around. But if you want to cultivate your own introducer network, or a few introducers, or even just one introducer, decide what proportion of your cost of sale you're going to pay in terms of commission, and educate that introducer just enough to know what they need for making that introduction, and look after them during the course of that relationship. They'll be itching to get their hands on the commission after you close the deal. So communicate with them how those deals are going, pay that commission fast, and provide them with the different tools and knowledge, access to the parts of your website, or whatever it might be, to help them on that journey of introducing.
Well, look, fabulous. Once again, dropping word bombs. There are plenty. David Chernick helping us understand why cultivating your introducers can be critical to your ongoing sales funnel. Thank you so much, David. If anybody out there finds this useful and would like to stay in contact, please do approach me or David, and also with ideas of what you'd like us to talk about. That's always a good one. But until next week, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars, and remember, look after that mental health and wear sunscreen. Bye-bye now.
Ciao, ciao.